Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and I'm here today to talk to you about Star Trek Picard Season 3. So I finally watched Season 3, and this is truly the best of all three seasons. Well, I can't really say about the second because I still haven't watched that yet. I'm a little terrified to watch season 2. I've heard too many bad things about season 2. The one I'm just literally like terrified to even contemplate wanting to watch it. But I probably should because my Paramount Plus is about to end soon, so you know. But like it's at least a whole lot better than season 1. And I could not stand season 1 at all. And you know, season 3 is how this show should have been since the beginning. If Star Trek Picard season 1 would have been something very similar to season 3, it probably would have gotten season after season after season. But there are only 3 so far. And you know, I just really don't get it. Like, I don't get the thought process of what they went through in season 1 and season 2, thinking this is what the fans wanted. And the thing is about it is like a lot of that had to do with Patrick Stewart. There were certain rules that he wanted. There were certain rules that he wanted for, like, you know, going forward with the Picard series. He didn't want uniforms. He didn't want, from what I've heard, he didn't want the TNG cast. A couple other things he didn't want it, and a couple other things, you know, about like Picard's tragic backstory of his mom and dad, and the somewhat retcon version of why he went into like space to begin with and stuff, and why he joined Starfleet, which blew everybody's mind as the real reason as to why he went into Starfleet. And it, like, oh, it's weird, you know, because it's like, you know, his dad used to be his mom, and the mom, I think, took her life or something like that. I still haven't seen season 2, but from what I heard, and he just wanted to get away from that. And then in season 3, he said he was looking for a family, yet he has an actual brother that he will not reference at all in this new series. And part of the reason why him and his brother fell out is because he joined Starfleet. So he had a family on Earth and everything, you know, and it's just he wanted to get far away from that. And it didn't seem like the Picard everybody knew and loved from TNG. The man who wanted to explore space, the man who wanted to protect humanity, the man who wanted to better himself. He literally just joined Starfleet just so he can run away from his problems. And fans did not want that. And you know, Patrick Stewart is an amazing actor. He's one of my favorite. Jean-Luc Picard is my favorite captain. Even though I don't agree with the choices he made on the show, I'm still a fan of that man, and it really bugs me when people made fun of him all throughout season 1. And, I mean, and the thing is, they're fans of his as well, and they would just constantly berating him because that's the new toxic thing to do online and on YouTube. It's like to get more views and clicks, you gotta be like a butthole and everything. And you know, but the thing is, as great as Patrick Stewart is, he should just act and not come up with ideas. But the thing is, his ideas would have been okay for like another character or another series, just not this one. When people watch Star Trek, they don't want to see like people not wearing uniforms. They don't want to see a starship that's not a Federation starship. If it's harping back on a legendary character in the series they've been in, they want the crew of that cast to come back. They don't want a bunch of new rando people, which, by the way, they got rid of every single last one of them except for Raffi. But then when it comes to Raffi in season 3, there was really no point in her being in there. Like, when you follow her storyline, she's just there to be Worf's like sidekick, and that's literally it. She didn't even feel like the same Raffi we knew in season 1 and 2. I don't understand how this woman is a commander, seeing all the stuff she went through in season 3. And a little bit of season 1 as well. But then in season 1, towards finale, we started to see why she's a commander. And why she's smart and why she's in Starfleet. But, you know, in season 3, she was just Worf's sidekick. Let's just put it how it is, you know what I'm saying? And but they got rid of everybody else. And I'm just kind of like, dude, that was a huge statement that they made from that of season 1 and 2. They're like, all right, this ain't working. Let's get rid of these people. And let's bring back the older generation cast. And you gotta feel a little bit bad for the new cast because they've been hated on since season 1 because they was written so terribly and stuff. The plot of season 1 was so terrible and stuff. And then if season 2 is what everybody says, then this is a complete disaster and everything. And you can't help but feel bad for like the new cast they brought in. But you know, if they would have brought in that new cast and wrote it similar to season 3, I think people would have enjoyed them a lot better and stuff. But it's hard to wrap your head around, like, you know, what is his name? Rios, who just smokes a cigar and, you know, and has like internal problems because some android girl he used to date and has a bunch of holograms that look like him. And, you know, then there's that android girl who got on everybody's nerves, and Girardi, who really got on everybody's nerves. And then there's the dude who chops people's heads off with a sword and everything, you know, Eleanor or whatever his name is. I mean, they made sure they got rid of him very early in season 2. I mean, these characters were just, and then, oh God, then there was Raffi, the ex-drug addict and everything, and how she got fired from Starfleet because of the dumbest reason. And it was just kind of like, you know, this is not what we wanted, but season 3 is what we wanted. Now, is season 3 perfect? No, because there is still new Trek lingering around in it. This show is still dark and gritty. And I mean, you really can't see nothing on the ship because it's so dark, because they're constantly at red alert. And even when they're not at red alert, every other location they go to is dark and everything. And that's the problem people have been having with New Trek. It's so dark looking and the storylines are so dark and gritty. There is still weird New Trek stuff lingering around. I don't like all the cussing. I do not appreciate in Star Trek. It's just not my thing. Them going away from Gene Roddenberry's like vision and everything, like say the phasers, they're back to that TOS like phaser pistol looking thing, and all the new Treks are like that. That bugged the crap out of me. Gene Roddenberry, he wanted a futuristic looking show. He did not want their primary weapon to look like, you know, a 20th century weapon and everything. That's why he went for the more wand shaped looking thing in TNG. And in every new Star Trek series, no matter what time era they're in, they have the pistol things. And I don't like that, because that's not what his vision was about. And they don't even shoot out a phaser beam blast. They shoot out these little projectiles and everything. This is not Star Wars, but Star Trek is still trying to be like Star Wars. And when you look at Picard season 3, it does kind of try to be like other sci-fi shows and Star Wars and stuff like that. And I just don't like that, you know. I also don't like how people are giving, like, you know, ranks and commands and positions, and it's just like they didn't earn it, or they had a criminal past in the background. And so it's kind of like, you know, dude, like, I love 7&9. I made a video about how I love 7&9 from Voyager, but I hate her in the Picard series. How in the world is she a commanding first officer? She literally dropped out of Starfleet many years ago, joined like these pirate, like freedom fighter type people, and went around killing people as revenge and everything. And how was she? And then not only that, but in season 2 they said something about she couldn't join Starfleet because of something like she being ex-Borg, which was a weird thing, because there are other ex-Borg who are in the Federation. So how in the world did she go from that to being a commanding first officer like so quickly and everything? And not only that, was she, yeah, she was a good commanding officer, but she still is not that smart 7 of 9 we knew from Voyager and everything. Throughout the entire season 3, she didn't show no signs of intelligence. She couldn't even figure out, like, the changelings and everything, and how to track them down, and about their like little bucket they get in and stuff. She had to ask like Shaw for all that, and you think she would know something. You would think that after coming back to the Alpha Quadrant, she would have researched them, because they even said, after the Dominion War, there are protocols now for like changelings and stuff. She should know about the bucket. She should know how to track them and all this other crap. And yet she just acted like she was oblivious. And she needed help in engineering when doing something. I forgot what it was. Her and Shaw was doing something, and she needed help doing that. This is 7 of 9 we're talking about. 7 of 9 can do everything on her own when it comes to like engineering type stuff. So it really bugs me how she's not that intellectual type person. Not only that, but her command was to take on the entire Starfleet with one ship. I'm just like, how did they survive all that while there were Borg still on the ship? And she's all like, that's just like fire as many of them as we can. I'm just like, that's not a 7 of 9 thinking kind of way. She's too smart for that. Yeah, I would have appreciated better if she was a science or engineering officer or something like that. She could have been a lieutenant commander, but I just don't see her commanding an actual ship when she's never shown no real leader skills in all those years she was on Voyager, and none of the time she's been on the Picard series. And not only that, but Raffi is once again reinstated into Starfleet, and she's a former drug addict and everything. Not only that, but like now she's the first officer of the Titan when 7 of 9 becomes captain of all things. And that's gotta be weird, because that is her former lover, and it's gonna compromise their relationship as they're trekking around the stars and everything. Because there have been so many captains who have tried to date somebody on their ship, and it never works out for a very specific reason and stuff. I mean, even Will and Diana, at some point she left Starfleet and he still was a captain every once in a while. And it would have been very difficult for those two to, like, work together because they're married. And also, when in the world did Beverly ever become a captain? Like, in the 20 years, like, since it's been off the air, she is an admiral by the end of the season. And it's like, when were you ever captain? I know she took like some classes to be like a commanding officer in TNG, but when was she ever captain? She was in that alternate timeline, but that was about it. And I mean, and then she knows how to work like phasers and torpedoes and the security station, tactical station, and she's all like, I've done a lot since you know me. So it's kind of like, oh, okay. So if they were shocked to see that, they should be even equally shocked to know that she's an admiral now and everything. And of course, they had to do the demotion of Admiral Picard to Captain Picard, just like they did Kirk. I don't like that, man. And not only was he demoted, but he didn't even get to keep the Enterprise D ship and everything. And, then there's Ro Lowen. How in the world is she able to be a Starfleet officer again after the incident that caused her to get kicked out of Starfleet? Then they brought her back into Starfleet in TNG. Then she got kicked out again because she joined a terrorist organization, only to be a commanding officer now. And it's just kind of like, how in the world is that possible? And then there's Jack. 1 year in Starfleet Academy, and he's already an ensign. How is that possible? They basically pulled a JJ's Kirk on him. And it's because of nepotism. And then not only that, but when he joins the Titan, what is his position? To sit next to the captain and the first officer as the counselor of the ship. First of all, since when does he know anything about counseling? Not to mention he's like a thief and everything. So it's just kind of like when I see crap like that, it bugs the snot rockets out of me, because it's like, Nog was like a rowdy kid growing up, but he was super intelligent and had a passion to join Starfleet, and he wasn't even allowed because he was Ferengi and he needed a superior officer in Starfleet to give him a recommendation and everything. And it's just like they're just throwing out positions and promotions left and right. My God, man, Harry was an ensign for 7 years, and every ensign on the bridge of the Titan became a lieutenant at the end of the season. Oh, just a quick heads up. This is gonna probably be the most scattered brain review I ever did. It's mostly me just randomly talking about what I like and what I dislike in this review. And then there's Captain Shaw. I do not like Captain Shaw. He is a butthead, but many people like him and everything, especially the toxic people. That man, because he's such a jerk. I get he's upset at Borg and former Borg. I get that. Lots of former Starfleet people are. But, they should have kept him like that towards the end instead of trying to make him soft and giving 7&9 a recommendation, which, by the way, I do appreciate them finally making her use her human name, Annika Hansen, because it's kind of like, one of the things that always bugged me was that 20 years passed and she still uses the name 7&9 and she still has her implants on her. And it's just kind of like, I want to know what the human 7&9 is like. I don't want to know what the former Borg drone is. And for her to keep going by the name 7&9 was just kind of odd. So when they made that choice decision to do that, I liked that until, of course, Shaw died and she went back to becoming 7&9, and it was just kind of like, I want to see the human of her. I want to know what she is like. Also, the whole her and Raffi relationship was just one confusing thing. Because it's like Raffi stated early in the season that her and her girlfriend broken up, and it was still weird how in season 1 they got together because they didn't have no dialogue together. And then on the last scene it shows them holding hands, and then I still haven't watched season 2, but I heard it's like they always arguing with each other. And it's one of those things from season 1 and 2 that just was not planned out very well, because the whole relationship was actually a joke between the actor who plays Hugh and the actress who plays 7&9. They joked around, what if 7 was in like a lesbian relationship, because the actor who plays Hugh is openly gay. And they're both friends and stuff. And so somehow that made it to the writer's room, and they decided the very last minute, okay, I just put them in a relationship. So it was never really a planned out thing, and it shows. And it's just one of the most tossed in the air kind of thing that they keep trying to experiment with. But it's not really resonating on screen very well because it was never thought out. And so, yeah. And so so it's not like season 3 isn't perfect by no means, but it's still very good. It kept me very engaged in everything. Oh, I also didn't I don't know how I feel about there being multiple villains. You have Vadic and the Changelings, and then you have the Borg. I'll get into that a little bit later, because it's just kind of I wish they just would have used one villain and not both. And because one's a DS9 villain, and it's just I don't know how I feel about that, But this season kept me very engaged. Just like New Trek, there's a long, drawn out plot, but it keeps you engaged so much that you want to get to the end. Unlike Discovery, because Discovery, it just drags it out for the longest time and it's never satisfying. But with this, it is very satisfying. There's so many homages to and shout outs and Easter eggs to every Star Trek show that's pretty much ever been made. Like from Enterprise to TOS to Deep Space Nine and Voyager. Although the Voyager stuff never really made no sense, because it's kind of like you think they would have utilized more of the weapons technology from Voyager, but not like the mobile emitter. Like that's kind of weird. Like why all of a sudden now Starfleet is using the mobile emitter? It totally retcons everything that happened in season one and a little bit of season two, because in season one they had androids and they had no rights and they was used as slave labor. And because so it's kind of like if you're gonna build a bunch of androids and make them into slave labor, why in the world are you giving holograms the ability to now to move around and stuff? And because that harpers back to Voyager when we see they was made into slave labor too, and so that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Other than the fact they needed Raffi to pretend to be on one spot and she really wasn't. And then, they talked about the Hirogen finally came to the Alpha Quadrant, which, I love the Hirogen. And that's really interesting. They made it to the Alpha Quadrant, but how? Was it like a bunch of people that set out hundreds of years ago and, finally made it there like those Klingon did? Did they get into like they find a wormhole? Did they increase their like warp drive? Like what did they do? You know what I'm saying? That was never really explained. So it was thrown in as an Easter egg, but it should have been better explained. And so, and if they really wanted to use a villain, in my opinion, they should have used species 8472 or whatever it's called, because they have the ability to shapeshift if they modify their genes. They hate humans. They hate the Borg. And, they wanted to spy on Starfleet and everything. This would have been the perfect opportunity to bring that back up. Or if they ever do a Star Trek Janeway series, they should be the primary villain and everything. But like I said before, I do like the twists and turns in this a whole lot better than season one. Season one's twists and turns really didn't make no sense because they created a brand new order for like the Romulans and everything, and then they brought the Borg in for whatever reason in season one, and it just didn't make a whole lot of sense. Now the Borg working with the changelings once again don't make no sense, but the Borg Queen is very desperate. But, like I said, I'll get into that a little bit later. But, it's just, season one pisses me off so bad because it could have been great. You know what I'm saying? Like, it really could have been great. And it was so great to see the original cast come back. Like, it just was so... they should have been back since season one. And in season one, the only ones they brought back was Troy, Riker, and Data. And left the other three completely out. And then fans didn't know if Geordi was even dead or not because he was there when Mars got taken over. And so it was just so great to see them again. And at first I didn't like Worf being the comedic relief and him being a pacifist, but it grew on me because Michael Dorn is just hilarious. He is just hilarious. The only part of it I didn't like when he fell asleep at the end. That was just kind of stupid. But everything else he said was just hilarious. And, just great to see him whooping everybody's behind and stuff like that. And it would have been nice to see him a little bit more grumpier, but time has passed and he has changed for whatever reason. But I still say, with all the time travel shenanigans, they could have brought Dax back. But it was funny to see him see Diana and her being so happy to always see everybody. She just gets really loud and excited and gives him a hug. And, and the way he was talking to her, it sounded like he wanted to take her from Riker. And Riker looked so jealous. Like, that was so perfect because it was a great homage to that very brief relationship they had in TNG and stuff. And Data, oh my god, dude, when Jordy's all like, can you be a little bit more like enthusiastic? He's all like, I hope we die quickly. Something like that. Like that was so great. And I was so happy when Brent came back because he didn't want to come back. He always wanted to play different Soon type characters, and people just want him to be Data. I don't understand why his eyes were so yellow in this. And like it's weird because they said in Discovery season 4 that like they haven't used that synthetic android stuff since Picard, and he was the only person to go through that. And yet now Data has gone through that. But to make a little bit of sense out of it, maybe they meant a human consciousness going into a synthetic android and not that of an android's consciousness going into one. So that could make a little bit more sense. And, you know, as much as I love Marina Sirtis and everything, boy, she is not funny. They kept giving her so many comedic lines, and it just didn't come out comedic and everything. They just didn't. And I know she wants to be the funny person. Her and Michael used to always talk about who's the funniest on TNG, and she used to get mad because he said he was funnier than her, and he is. The only time her character has ever been funny was First Contact when she was drunk. But they kept trying to give her so many comedic lines, and it just didn't come off like that good. But I love her to death as an actress. She's great as a serious actress, and that's the way I like her. So, but she wants so badly to be known as like a comedian, even when she does like interviews and conventions. She's always saying like comedic stuff, and I don't know why she wants to be the funny one for it. Like, just let Data and Worf be the funny ones and stuff. Even Patrick Stewart is not funny. Like, he had a line in there, and it just came off as awkward because it just didn't come out as genuine. Because he's not really known as being a comedian, even though he has tried in the past as well. It's their British voices, you know? It just don't come off well as, like, comedic. They're not comedians like those other British actors and actresses and stuff. But one thing I did not like is how everybody always craps on Picard, man. Like, why they always gotta do that? That's back in season 1. Every person that interacted with him almost just crapped on him. Shaw, Geordi of all people. I'm like, dude, like, who are you, Troy from season 1? Even Riker got pissy at him, but Riker knew the risk of what they went into. They went into to save Beverly. Because that's the thing. Everybody's so pissed at Picard, but he went in to save a friend, and it turned out to be this big conspiracy that nearly destroyed the universe. And if he didn't go to save Beverly, then, like, you know, all of Starfleet and Alpha Quadrant would have been taken over and stuff. So I don't understand why people were so pissed at him. Geordi, I can understand because, you know, his kids, but his kids know the risk of joining Starfleet, just like he joined Starfleet, and his parents are Starfleet officers and stuff. And it was cool to see LeVar Burton's real daughter play like the con officer, because, you know, that's the position he started off with in TNG before he went into engineering and stuff. And of course, there's like a little romance brewing between her and Jack Crusher. Speaking of Jack Crusher, like, the actor was really good, but he does not look like he's in his 20s, man. And I still think that was crappy of Beverly to not tell Picard he has a son. That was the most low-down thing ever. And then the excuse they made was, oh, everybody in the galaxy is always trying to kill Picard and everything. He's the great Picard. No, they don't. We never saw that throughout the entire run of TNG, none of the movies, none of that stuff. So it was just a weird plot line to come up with. And why are they trying to kill him as he's old where they can really take his behind out? So that was just the most low-down thing ever for her to, like, you know, say and do. And but, you know, in a way, it's cool that they have a family, because everybody always wanted them to be together. But man, Wesley sure got the short end of that stick. Not even mentioned in this season. Didn't even show up like he did in the last season. And then so it's like, you know, But people always wanted them to get together, so that's kind of cool. They're not together, but they have a family, son now, and everything. But it does kind of take away from the emotional beat of Star Trek Generations, the movie, when Picard's greatest failure was him never having the family. And that was a real like key moment of that movie, and now that's been completely taken away by him having a son now. And so it does kind of suck. Jack as a person, he's just like a loose cannon, like free spirit type person. I wish he didn't join Starfleet. That really bugged me. But the whole twist of, like him inheriting, like, the Borg genes from Locutus when Picard was Locutus and everything, and the Irritmatic syndrome turned out not to be Irritmatic syndrome at all. That retcon, I don't know how I feel about, because I don't really like that retcon, because it was in the alternate timeline. It was all throughout season 1. It's why he's a freaking android and not a human being and everything. And I mean, they really had to retcon the crap out of that, which makes a little bit more sense because, in First Contact, he could still hear the Borg. But, I always assumed that was just residual something or another in his body or something like that. But, they retconned that to say that it was just leftover Borg stuff that caused the symptoms of Irritmatic syndrome. And it killed him. And so it's kind of like, what were the Borg banking on? Like, seriously, like the Borg is not a person who has like throws everything to chance. They're not wishful thinkers. So basically the Borg's huge plan for 30 years were like what? To hope that Picard will live a long life and use the beacon inside his brain to possibly make an offspring, or they could probably use his body or something like that. But then if he died, just to get his corpse and whatever. Like, what if he never had a kid? What if he never died and they would never get their hands on him? Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, that was just like the biggest moment of the Borg. It made them look really sloppy and stuff. But for the most part, I do like Jack Crusher as a character. The whole build up to why is he seeing red vines? What has to do with the red door? If they would have used green, that would have been too much of a giveaway. And I was getting that whole Red Angel vibe thing again, so I'm like, oh God, not that. But the conclusion was pretty cool, that the Borg were using him and everything to be like a transponder to be the new high collective of the Borg and stuff for all those ensigns that they infected. That was a very clever thing. I will say his Borg outfit in the new Borg, I'm okay with their new look and design because they're the Borg, they're always upgrading. Because in TNG it was just like fabric, stretch spandex and rubbery looking stuff, and then in Voyager and First Contact it was more like a slim down rubber suit that actually looked metal. But now it's back to being big and bulky and rubbery looking. Like I just couldn't help but to think that's a rubber suit. Like Voyager used rubber suits too, but you couldn't tell because they looked like they was painted well. They were painted to look like rusty metal and everything in Voyager and First Contact, and now they gone back to the basic black suits, and it just looked like a rubber suit. And then I do like the footage they showed of First Contact, because in First Contact they did redesign Locutus to make him look more Borgish and everything, like the current Voyager and the other Borg in First Contact. But when you compare them to what Jack is wearing, you can just tell Jack is wearing a rubber suit. When he moves his mouth, it moves like rubber and everything. The ending, also, it is kind of weird how Beverly's all like they haven't heard from the Borg in 10 years. How many years have passed through the Picard seasons? Like, seriously. If like a couple of decades have passed, then okay, I can see how Seven got reinstated and this and that. But they literally just saw the Borg not too long ago with the whole Jurati thing in season 2. Not to mention, I thought all the Borg were literally supposed to be destroyed except for the former drones that was on the artifact and everything. And so I just don't get that dialogue and everything. And it really is a slap in the face to Janeway trying to get rid of the Borg and everything. And I don't know. It's just kind of like, it's almost like they retcon almost everything in season 1 and 2, except for like, the tinier things they wanted to keep, like Raffi and Seven and stuff like that. But then they just retcon every single thing else, or that in the Aromatic Syndrome. But then other than that, they just retcon everything. Like what happened to Picard's like girlfriend from season 2? There is no mention of her whatsoever. And I'm just kind of like, this is why this season isn't like perfect. It could have been perfect. It was close to being perfect. But the clunky writing, and it just shows that the showrunners don't even know their own shows, man. It's like, I get it, fans didn't like that, but you have to explain it away. Like, one of the things I do like about this season is like the loose tie-ups from other stuff that they did explain. But then when you don't explain other little things that happen literally in your own show from other seasons, then it gets kind of weird. Like, there's no mention of Eleanor. Like, is he dead? Is he alive? Raffi was all like motherly to him and everything, and heartbroken over him dying in season 2. So it's kind of like, I don't get the writing sometimes in this. I'm a little disappointed they didn't do more of a 7 of 9 in the Borg. Like, how in the world do you miss that opportunity? 7 of 9 is a former Borg drone who spent, the last couple of years she had on the last couple of seasons of Voyager, like, contemplating should she go back, how she missed being a drone, how she likes being human and how she doesn't want to be a drone no more, like, embracing her humanity and everything. How do you miss that opportunity to not have her interact with the Queen, or like interact with the rest of the Borg drones, or like, be brainwashed or like something? Because you gotta remember, in the Voyager episode, she can still hear the collective's voice in her head when they're near, because she has that transponder thing still stuck in her head, and the Queen can talk to her anytime she feels like it. So how do you miss that opportunity to bring the Queen back and not have her try to contact 7 of 9? Now, she knows 7 of 9 is not going to try to help her, but how in her little contingency plan that the Queen had, she didn't find a way to re-assimilate 7 of 9, especially how when 7 of 9 reconnected with the Borg cube in season 1. You'd think that would have left like something in her, or something like that. But they didn't do that whatsoever. The most we get is her head hurting when she hears the transponder beacon from the Borg and everything, activating the rest of the drones. But other than that, she was able to resist that and go about her way, only because she's not 25 years or younger. And, but it was just an odd thing. Like, how do you miss one of the biggest opportunities you have? And 7 should have been there also to help destroy the Borg, instead of fighting the entire fleet of Starfleet with one little ship that's been banged up all season. Like, come on, man. That's what I'm saying about the writing and stuff, and how 7 isn't that smart no more. The ship is banged up. It's been banged up since like the 2nd or 3rd episode of the season. How in the world are you going to take on the entire fleet? And how is it the entire fleet did not destroy the Titan? I mean, come on now. Come on now. I'm going to talk a bit more about Shaw. I think Shaw is exactly what's wrong with New Trek. Here you have this captain, and he's so arrogant, so rude, so disgusting. He doesn't even care if he berates somebody around his crew. And that is a problem I'm having with New Trek. It reminds me of Discovery season 1, when everybody was so mean and so rude to each other. I don't understand why the writers think this is great characterization of like humans and stuff in Starfleet, when they're not supposed to be that angry, grumpy and stuff. And it's the same thing with all the swearing. Now, I get why he's upset at like former Borg. He fought, the Borg and everything, and lost a lot of his friends. And I understand that. We've seen other people be upset at Borg too. B'Elanna, Cisco. But then after a while, even though they hated them, they still reminded themselves that, yo, they are Starfleet officers and stuff. This man just acts like every toxic person that hates like the new stuff that's going on in Star Trek fandom. By new stuff, I mean like, when they see all this diversity and stuff, which has been there before in the past, all this political stuff, which has been there in the past. But like other little things like introducing like LGBT characters, actors, and actresses and stuff, he reminded me of all those people. So it's almost like, they was like being meta and stuff about like, all the toxic people that like, roam the internets now and try to like ruin stuff. And he reminded me so much of that. But it is quite a shame they will write a character who's just that disgusting and see, the hatred he has towards Seven and how he treats her and stuff. And, and even though Seven is human, I guess you can technically count as half Borg. It is somewhat of a nice allegory and everything, like Star Trek normally does when but they normally have alien species hate on like, other people and stuff. But rarely do they show like humans and stuff. And so, in a way, that is a nice way of going back to old Trek, but still it's not in that strong allegory fashion that they used to do back in the day. And I was so glad when his character died. I know a lot of the actors on that show, they want to go on to a spinoff called Star Trek Legacy, where Seven is the captain and the rest of the crew is there and everything. I wouldn't mind it. I still like 7&9. I just wish they would make her smarter, and I don't understand why she's the captain after all the stuff she's did in the past and stuff. But like, especially Raffi as her first officer, and like, I always felt bad for that actress who plays Raffi and everything. They really wrote the crap out of that character in a bad, bad, bad way. Ever since like season 1 and everything. She's always been that unlikable character, but then they try to make her likable. But then the damage has been done because not that many people really truly like her and stuff. Also, let me just give a shout out to that of like the ship designs of all the different ships we got, because it really was like, a love letter to old Star Trek fans of the TNG, DS9, and Voyager era. However, I noticed they went back to giving ships a neck, which was a big thing they tried to get away from towards the middle of DS9 with the Defiant and that of Voyager. Because, if a ship was just to fire its phasers or torpedoes at like the neck, boom, you are like out. You know what I'm saying? And it's like it cripples like the saucer section of like the ship. And so, but I do appreciate the look and overall designs of like, the different types of ships they had. And, even though Voyager, they gave Voyager a more meaty, plated type look and everything, it was nice to see that old design again. But it is sad that it's no longer in commission. And, the same thing with the Defiant. It is the warship of the Federation and the only one at that. And, I do also like the designs of like season 1 ships, because, that copy and paste ships that we got that one time, because those were nice as well. And like, it had a more updated look than like, a lot of the older ones and stuff. And I do like and appreciate that. But it was just great to go back to the classic design overall. And like, and it was nice to be able to see the ship. Like the Enterprise now in Strange New World, it has a very dirty look to it. Sometimes you can barely see it. And I don't like all the plated like dirtiness of it. And then of course with Discovery, it just looks like a crazy ship and stuff, but that's one of the great thing about Star Trek is the beautiful looks of the ship and the technology within it. I love the new panels and stuff, the seats. I don't like how it's so dark in the Titan. You can't see crap. No matter if it's at red alert or whatever, you just can't see nothing in it really. But what you are able to see looks very nice. I just want to throw in a little quick thing about the whole pregnant Nebula episode. I've seen it done better before in other Trek episodes. This was really just a filler for them to say, hey, this is what old Trek used to be like. And see, we're not completely dark and gritty because the rest of the season was dark and gritty. But it's like, it was just like a pointless episode. And the fact that Beverly was able to figure out the nebula is having contractions was just weird. But I am glad they gave Gates a whole lot more to do. But it's just kind of like in those 20 years, how she learned to do all of that? You know what I'm saying? But I'm so glad they gave her something to do because she's had it rough on that show as many other ones have. I still don't like Starfleet being so shady. Like, you know, I forget where they had the Daystrom Institute. That was the shadiest thing ever. Them like creating tribbles and turning them into monsters. Have both Kirk and like Picard's body. Experimenting on like, you know, what are their faces called, the changelings and stuff. And it's just like, I'm tired of this shady organization in Starfleet. I'm tired of the dystopia. And not only that, but this, you know, Starfleet and Federation is all about humanity and being individuals and stuff. And it's just kind of like, if that's so, why did they program all their Starfleet ships to be more like Borg? To where if there's an attack, they all attack at the same time, the same type of pattern, and they're all connected through like the network and stuff. Why would they try to be more like the Borg? Like, I don't understand that. I really don't. And for them to consider, like, you know, the Picard and the Titan and all them people to be like villains and outlaws and all this other stuff, it's because they disobey orders. I'm so sick of that crap, you know. And as for the writers, bringing back Shelby and Rowland just to kill them off was jacked up, man. And the Enterprise, they had to destroy it. It never had a voyage. It never got to do anything. It just got blown up. And it was a beautiful ship. But before I get into the villains, I don't like how the Titan, like, you know, became the new Enterprise G. Like, come on, let the Titan be the Titan. You know what I'm saying? Give that ship back to Will and everything. Like, don't turn it into the Enterprise, even though it's a beautiful ship. But to the villains, I gotta bring up again how nice it was to see the Enterprise D in all its CGI glory and stuff. You know, because that was a very beautiful ship. Until the E came along, and I love the E a whole lot more. But there was just something so beautiful about the D and everything. And, you know, but one thing that don't make no sense is Geordi, when he said he repaired it. This is what don't make no sense. Okay, when the ship, the the drive section got destroyed, and it had the salsa section smattered on like that planet. But it survived, but it was still messed up, you know. He said they recovered it from that planet. However, we know he recovered it from that planet because at the end of Generations, we saw, like, you know, the crew get rescued and Picard and them on, like, the bridge and, you know, all the Starfleet people helping out. So we know where the ship was, and not like it was lost in space and everything. And this just goes to show the writers of this show don't know Star Trek. They just know little tidbits and right around that. And he said he replaced, I think, like the nacelles with this other ship. All I'm thinking is, why don't they just build a brand new ship? There's no money in the 24th century. They just build things when they need stuff. And they have endless supply of material because they could replicate stuff in energy. So why did he have to take nacelles and other stuff from other ships to rebuild the Enterprise? Why couldn't he just rebuild it from like scratch or something like that? They have the schematics. And that's the part of, like, you know, that just doesn't really make that much sense. And not to mention, the Enterprise D is not the only galaxy starship the Federation has. There have been other galaxy starships the Federation has and stuff. I'm surprised they just didn't rechristen one of those, like, you know, the Enterprise and stuff. And not to mention, now, apparently, because of Strange New Worlds, whenever, like, you know, a ship is decommissioned, they take a piece of it and they put it in the new ship. And so, like, you know, it makes you now wonder is the Titan G, or the Titan, which is now the Enterprise G, are they gonna put a piece of all the older Enterprises into that ship now, since that is now canon for some bizarre reason? It was nice to have some moments with Diana and her using her telepathy, but however, I don't recall her going into people's brains the way she did, with her telepathy and stuff, because she's only half Betazoid. And not only that, but it's like, I guess since Jack doesn't have telepathy, but he has that Borg thing where he can control people, but still, it's not the same thing as telepathy. So they kind of increased her powers, which was kind of weird. But it was nice to see her do something. But when she took control of the helm, how did nobody be all like, no, you wrecked the ship last time? But it was nice to see her and Will, talk about stuff like their family and the dead son. I'm surprised they didn't mention the daughter more. Like, where is she? Seriously, where is she? And why wasn't she kidnapped along with Diana? And how was Diana so easily kidnapped? Is the planet they live on really uninhabitable, where it's only them and them only and stuff? And you think Starfleet will have better security. I mean, the freaking house has its own shields and everything. So how was she able to get kidnapped so easily and stuff? And it would have been nice for them to show the daughter or something like that, I just realized something. Worf is wearing the wrong colored uniform again. When he was in Nemesis, he wore the wrong uniform. He was supposed to be security chief gold in Nemesis, but he wore red. Now in Picard, I thought he was wearing red, but because it was so dark on the show, I couldn't see until I looked at the pictures. And the pictures show him wearing a gold division uniform, which makes no sense because he has the rank of captain. Make it make sense, man. I get it. They wanted that old nostalgia of everybody wearing their original colors from TNG when they're on the bridge at the Enterprise D. But still, man, you're messing with my head canon. Another great moment, we finally got to see the whole Geordi and Data reunion. And not only that, but a little bit of lore too. Because, him and Geordi were best friends in the television series. And it was always odd how in the movies they rarely interact with each other. Because they went for more of the Picard Data aspect, kind of like a Spock Kirk kind of thing. And it was always even more weird how, in the first season of Picard acted Data was his best friend in the entire universe. When those two they would interact in the television show, but not as much as him and Geordi. And so it was nice to see that reconnection, that reunion, and, for Geordi to finally tell Data just what, him being a friend of him all those years meant to him and everything, and how it made him a better person and stuff. And he even said, it made him a better father. And even though him and his daughter haven't talked in a good while, but him and his other daughter who took up engineering, they have a great relationship and stuff. It was nice to see, some old school, aliens we haven't seen in a while, and even some new ones that I didn't even recognize. And, but I still feel weird that there's a Vulcan gangster squad out there, a mob. Why are some Vulcans mobsters now? I don't get that. It would have made more sense to make them Romulan or something. Romulan gangsters. Come on now. They're always bringing them back into, the show, so why not now? And, also, some of the Vulcans on this show acted like they had a little bit of emotion, just a tad bit, which was kind of odd to see. And I noticed something. They had a white Ferengi in this show. I've never seen that before. All Ferengi have always been brown. And this is the first time we've ever had a white one. So I'm very curious to know why they did that, because I've always been curious about B'Elanna. B'Elanna was the only light-skinned Klingon we ever had in Star Trek. And then when she created some on the holodeck, she created these white-looking Klingons and stuff. And, because Klingons always have brown skin and stuff. And so that was really interesting. I wish they would have explained that. How the Andorians, there are dark blue or the light blue colored kind, they're kind of like the dark blue kind, and they're these kind of like albino kind, and they explain that. So it'd be nice if they would explain a little bit. Now, the one ensign lady on the bridge, I don't know what alien species she was. Maybe she was new. So that's cool and everything. I always like it when they bring out new aliens and they don't make them look all Discovery looking, like all the prosthetics and crap. Now, I will say Rose Laren, I almost didn't recognize her. Not because the actress got older, but because her cranial ridges on her nose weren't as pronounced as they was on Next Generation. That you can actually barely see them. And not only that, but they changed shape and everything. Like when they first introduced her, she had kind of like these little weird horn things near the sides. But then they later took those off and made a more refined look for like Deep Space Nine. But no matter what, it's like her ridges you can barely see and stuff. Vadic was a great villain. Like I was wondering how she came into play in the story. How does she know Picard and she doesn't? And so, but she was just a slimy villain and everything. And I really appreciate it because the actress is really good. The Shriek is an amazing design, but I do hate how all these bad like villainous ships in New Trek have to be so large and intimidating. Like it's just kind of pathetic, but it does look cool. The portal weapon was awesome and they should have kept it. Why give us something so cool like that just to get rid of it in the same episode? Like that was just so stupid of them. But to turn out that Vadic used to be human and she used to experiment on the changelings because of course Starfleet is evil now. And those changelings are now modified to where they're different than what they used to be. They no longer look liquid. They're like clunky and chunky now. And, you know, for that changeling to kill Vadic and then take her form was just like something methodical, you know what I'm saying? But it's like, you know, the changeling should have been left for if they ever make a DS9 new series. Like just bringing them into the TNG era was just kind of odd because that's not really their villain, you know what I'm saying? And they should have been the primary villain if they were going to be the villains. Like why did they want to like take over humanity again? And it's just because of revenge and that's it. Like they didn't want to go back to the Gamma Quadrant and join the Link. No, they want to destroy all solids and everything. Which is a petty, cheap way of writing, in my opinion. And I don't understand why some of them wore face masks and made that clicking noise when they spoke. That made absolutely no sense whatsoever, and we never got to see a real changeling's face. But the fact that they evolved from like the modifications of them being able to have organic like organs in them, and you know when they get cut blood. See, this is the part about the writing that's bad. In order to tell if you're a changeling, they do a blood test. Now they say they evolved where they can produce organs, and when they die, they don't transform back into their liquid state. Well, when they die, they actually turn to ash. So the writers don't even know that. Secondly, they can pass a blood test by dripping some of their ooze and turning it into blood. That is how Martok and I think Jillian was able to fool people because they took a blood test and all they had to do was just drop some of their body into like the hypo spray to make it look like blood. So the writers don't even know that. And the fact that, you know, if a changeling, when they leave their bucket, they don't leave traces of themselves in there. They take every piece with them. And so I just thought that was bad writing on the part because they don't know Trek. And you know how those showrunners are. They don't know Trek and everything. So this is why I wish they didn't tackle like the changelings and stuff. Now, one thing about Vadic the Vadic changeling that I don't understand is the whole chopping off the hand and talking to that mysterious figure who just happened to be the Borg, like, you know, queen. First of all, in order to separate your, like, body parts, they don't have to cut them off. Like, you know, they can just remove it, like, in their liquid state. I don't understand that. I also don't understand how the Borg queen was able to communicate via whatever, like inside, like, the body of, Vedic and stuff. Why couldn't she just talk to her in her mind if whatever Borg, like, machinery was inside her? See, I don't understand that part. And they really didn't explain it that well. They just wanted to be mysterious. It really made no sense why the Borg Queen face looked the way it did when it was floating around in all that gooey liquid stuff. And it didn't explain why, in order to talk to her, they had to like cut, the hand off. But then their hand would reassemble itself back to like the body part. That didn't make a lick of sense. And they just tried to make Vadic more mysterious, but it raises more questions and stuff. And this is what I say about sloppy writing with new Trek. Bringing the Borg back was interesting for the millionth freaking time in the Picard series. They've been brought back all 3 seasons. And in the first 2 seasons, they were brought back very poorly. It really is a slap in the face to what Janeway did, because her series finale was to destroy the Borg. But oh look, now they're still around 20 years later. So that just completely pisses on Janeway's success and her finale and stuff. And when they brought him back in season 1 and 7/9 hooked up to the cube, that would have been the most interesting twist if they would have done that in season 3, where she's the new Borg Queen or something and she doesn't even realize it. That's what they should have done. But instead, apparently Janeway, I don't even know what the deal with the Borg Queen is anymore, because now you have season 2 and you have 2 set of Borgs, the good one and the bad one. Because you have the Jurati Borg that's supposed to be good and makes no sense. And not only that, but why didn't the Titan call on them to help defeat the Borg this time? And I don't understand how 2 sets of Borg can exist in the same universe now. Because if the Borg Queen was really that desperate to infect the Starfleet ensigns and stuff, why didn't she just go and find the good collective and reassimilate them? Like, that would have made more sense. But it shows that Janeway whooped that woman's behind to the point of decay, to where she's hooked up to the literal, like, cube and everything. I don't like the new design of the cube on the outside. Why add spikes? They're the Borg, for crying out loud. You don't need that to be intimidating. But the fact that she implanted a virus in the transporter buffer, of all things, to infect people 25 and younger, that was just interesting. Like, I would never have thought of that. And to have all of Starfleet be like literally taken over and stuff, well, at least the younger people and stuff. And then they go on a killing spree of all the older ones and stuff. But it's like, it's just weird, because I'm tired of constantly seeing the Borg as a crutch for whenever they need a villain for this series and stuff, especially that of the Picard series. They've used them twice before, and now they use them for a 3rd time. It would have been better if 7/9 would have been the new Borg Queen and taken over, like her being brainwashed or something. That would have been very cool. But I hope to God they never use the Borg again. Let them finally be done with and stuff. But the fact that, like, the way she infected humanity was like, dude, she's been playing that for a long time. And stuff. Oh, also, I have a problem with Beverly wanting to use the virus that kills the changelings, which that shouldn't even work no more, because they have the cure and Odo cured them, so that wouldn't even work. But the fact that she would consider it is really un-Starfleet of her. There have been instances where they wanted to destroy the Borg and both TNG and Voyager with a virus, and they opted not to, because it's not what Starfleet would do. So the fact that she wants to commit genocide just to save her son, who's not a really good person, by the way, was really jacked up. And I'm glad that, they didn't let her do that. But the fact that they contemplated that and didn't say, oh, this is not the Starfleet way and blah, blah, I really hate the new Trek way of writing and stuff. I thought the ending was perfect with, like, the TNG cast going back to that of the Enterprise D. Because, The technology they've used this season, I love. This is how the technology should have looked for season one. Although I was okay with the holographic screens as well, because 20 years has passed. But when you see Discovery using it, and then it's kind of like, well, it's just the same crap. So that's why I always appreciated like those 29th century episodes when we see the new comm panels and everything, and how reminiscent they were to the older ones. So when they upgraded the TNG panels for like the Titan, I appreciate that because that's a nice upgrade. This is how it should have looked 20 years later. And so it was also nice to go back to that classic Enterprise D that everybody loves and everything. And the old comm panels just to show the difference in how things look. And so it was great seeing the TNG cast back there. Although Geordi should have been on the engineering station on the bridge instead of the con, but that was just an homage to him being on the con. And it was cool to see him take command of the ship. But this is what's confusing. If he's just a Commodore and never became a captain and everything, then shouldn't Beverly or Diana should have taken like command of the Enterprise, because both those women have because Beverly was a commander throughout TNG, and she has some bridge experience, and Diana, who doesn't have much bridge experience, she has the rank of commander and took command a couple of times. And if Beverly became like a captain and then an admiral, then shouldn't she have command experience and stuff? And so of course we know Data couldn't, because they couldn't rely on him in case Lore came back, and with him and his emotions and everything. But so I do get why Geordi took over, but at that same time, it's kind of like shouldn't Beverly have taken over? And as for Data, like I said before, it was great seeing Data come back and everything, but he's acting like he's had emotions for the first time, which he's had them on 3 separate occasions in the past, especially in the movies. So I don't understand why they're acting like he's never had emotions before and people never realized he had emotions. So that's always kind of odd in everything. And so but it was great to see him tackling the lower side of his before it just got pushed to the side and stuff. But back to the ending. The ending was so great with them all at Guidance Bar. Why is Guidance Bar all throughout this season? And why is it on the holodeck of the Titan? I don't understand that. And so you think they would have more holodeck programs and stuff, but it's always her bar. And also it's with the holodeck, why is it during a case of emergency people can just run to the holodeck and enjoy themselves? Even Jack brought that up, which was stupid dialogue. It don't make no sense. But anyway, it was great seeing them at Guidance Bar playing poker, the ending to the series finale of TNG. That was perfect. It was the best homage ever, and they should have ended it like that until they got over enthusiastic and everything and brought Q back from the dead after he died in season 2. And so it's like him and Jack are, I guess, going to embark on a mission and everything, because the trials of humanity have started again, but no longer with Picard, but now with that of Jack Crusher and everything. And seriously, dude, I don't get that. Why did they have to end it like that? It was perfect the way they ended it, but they wanted to add that little thing. And what is so great about Jack that he's supposed to be the savior of mankind now and everything. Also, with the whole ending of TNG with Q telling him, the trials of mankind are not over with, and then he whispered something in Picard's ear. He was about to, but then stopped. That should have been also the premise of the Picard series and stuff. I just don't see the Borg being the trials of humanity and something mankind has to test themselves. I guess because organics created the Borg or whatever, but I don't know. It should have been something bigger, I think. Speaking of the villains, so all in all, not a perfect season, but it is extremely good to the point where I'm even thinking about buying it on DVD. But it's kind of like, because it's not episodic, I just can't bounce around the episodes I want to watch. You literally have to watch the entire thing. You know what I'm saying? And that is a problem with a lot of newer Trek and a lot of newer shows. But man, this was such a good season. And to think, if this show would have been like that in season 1, we could have had 5, 6, 7, 8 seasons of this show, you know? Because I get it, a lot of the TNG characters are either like captains, commanders, dead, or commodores and stuff. And it would have been strange to see them get demoted and, you know, be part of like Picard's crew again. But they didn't have to do that. They could have just said they had some off time, they're hanging out on one of their ships, and they go somewhere and people need their help. And, you know, that would have been perfect. They didn't even have to be in uniform. They could have just wore civilian clothes. And they could have helped out a civilization or some big phenomenon or something like that. Just them hanging out and then, oh, look, something disastrous happened. And, you know, that would have been cool. But the pacing was really good in this season, how they introduced all the original characters back. They just didn't bring them all back in the same episode, you know. It did take a little too long for Troy to come back, which was kind of a bummer, but the actress does live in England again because she left America sometime a few years ago, I think because of politics and because her husband died and stuff. And so she just went back home, but she hasn't been back home in over 20 years and stuff. And so it probably took a bit longer for her to come back, especially during the COVID restrictions and stuff. And so when she finally did come back, it was so great to see her back. It was so great to see them all back. Even Tasha Yar got like a little picture cameo from her younger days. They still have not brought back that human Romulan lady that looks like her, which was a missed opportunity in season 1. The fact there's no mention of like, what's his name? Will Wheaton's character was just kind of odd, you know what I'm saying? It's almost like he doesn't exist in Star Trek no more. But it was just so great for them to bring back so many Easter eggs and like, you know, memories and characters we haven't seen in a long time. But it sucks when those legendary characters die very quickly. You know, it's just one of those things that, man, what could have been in season 1 should have been. You know, it really should have been, because TNG is my favorite Star Trek series. And boy, man, I tell you, like, you know, I'm glad they got a proper send-off this time, because Nemesis is an okay movie. It's just okay. But it was not the proper send-off for those characters. I mean, yeah, they tried to make everything where everybody had a happy ending, except for Geordi and stuff. But like, you know, this was the true best send-off they had. I mean, even Troy and Riker, they're still married, talk about their kids and the one they lost and how they don't like where they're living. Worf is has learned to control his anger. I don't understand why Geordi's a Commodore and just rebuild ships. Like, you think he would be teaching at Starfleet Academy or be a captain like in those alternate timelines or something. Picard, you know, he's living at home in his vineyard and apparently his wine tastes disgusting and nobody likes it. But, you know, he's had his hurrah for 3 seasons and stuff. And, you know, Beverly has her son and now she teaches at Starfleet again in medical as like the chief medical person there and stuff. And then she's an admiral of all things. Yeah, you know, 7&9 got to be a captain and everything. And so this was, you know, 7&9 is never, you know, part of like TNG crew. You know, they tried to bring her in Nemesis and stuff. And heck, we even got to see Tim Ross as Tuvok again. That was so cool, with him pretending to be a changeling and then actually him being his real self and giving that promotion to, like, you know, 7&9 and stuff. You know, his Vulcan ears look completely different. They look more curved and everything, like elf ears. But, like, you know, it was great seeing him again, and he's a captain. It makes sense for him being a captain. He was a lieutenant commander in Voyager. But, you know, it would have been cooler to see a couple more Voyager people. Like, you know, know, it is a missed opportunity. B'Elanna has not met Worf yet. It is a missed opportunity. And they could have brought the Doctor back for some, that would have been great. But, this was truly the proper send-off for these legendary characters. And if they ever do bring them back in the future, I hope they don't ruin it, Alrighty, well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.